right, there we go. Hey everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another great day of FileMaker training at fmtraining.tv. I'm the creator of fmtraining.tv, where you can learn all about the FileMaker platform and learn how to build better FileMaker applications for you, your customers, your organization. This broadcast is completely free to everyone and is being broadcast in high definition to Discord, YouTube, and to Twitch. This broadcast is being recorded, which is really great. Of course, we might clean up the recording a little bit, so if we make a malfunction during the live stream, then of course we reserve the right to clean that up on the recording later on. However, because it's a live broadcast, we encourage you to ask questions. In fact, some people get aggravated when there's this dialogue with you and we ask questions. We want questions. If you have a question, odds are other people have the question too. And so I want to thank everyone for logging in. Ken and TK and Dave One, Dave Learning, Ed, Elzo, Carol, Jake, Mike, all of you, welcome once again to another great broadcast. Now, as a reminder, if you want to check out the upcoming broadcast, go to fmtraining.tv, press the left tab for the live button. You can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. That's pretty awesome. Additionally, if you want to help support this channel, right? We always say this, this broadcast is brought to you by fmtraining.tv, bringing you the greatest and the most entertaining FileMaker training videos available. So the idea is that if you want to help support the channel, make sure you check out our on-demand video bundles. We have videos that cover the latest version of FileMaker. We have videos that cover the deploy course. In fact, we used to sell the courses individually. Anymore, it's just much simpler to sell a complete bundle for a low price. We do this on an annual basis. So if you buy one of the bundles, that really helps support the channel. It ensures that we can keep coming back every day, because this broadcast actually takes a lot of money to run. The people here don't work for free. So Jacob, so are you good? Are you ready? What are we talking about today? Yep. What are we doing, or why do we care?
What we're going to talk about today is sort of the short overview. Is it's a little trick that you can do with FileMaker Server, and it has a couple of benefits. I know it's like we're like talking about backup strategy here, which I'm sure is the most interesting thing anyone has ever talked about on stream. But the thing is you want to have backups for your databases because you want to be able to restore your business if, for example, the server crashes, if you have, I don't know, giant lightning strike and it eats the whole data center, or like whatever, various disaster scenarios that might happen, and where you're going to go, okay, cool, like we don't have a server anymore. But as it turns out, our backup strategy was good, and so we have a copy of the business still. And so maybe we have to go back and, I don't know, rebuild the whole thing. But we have the data, so we're offline, but that's it. Like it's a big problem, but it's not an existential issue. And so one of the ways that I figured out to kind of embrace cloud stuff more often, a little more strongly, because like historically at RCC, it's always been on-site servers, and we set up a lot of Mac Minis for our clients as well, especially like on-site Mac Minis and stuff like that, and some Windows boxes. And so one of the biggest challenges that you run into, you buy a fast enough server, you're keeping up to date with operating system updates and FileMaker updates and all this stuff. Cool. But one of the first things that you'll run into when you start like really growing as a business, when you have a large data set, is if you're trying to store documents, images, whatever kind of files inside of FileMaker containers, it quickly becomes basically a hardware problem to actually back all the data up. And I mean that a hardware problem in the sense that either you need terabytes and terabytes of space, and then you're trying to back that up, for example, every hour, which would be ideal, or it's, I have another customer who doesn't have that much stuff, maybe only 10 gigs of actual files, but it's 3 million files because they're all very small. And so that causes, it's the same sort of problem. It's basically difficult to back all the data up, but from a different reason. It's because there's so many individual things to back up versus a massive amount of, gigabyte count. And so we have a trick actually that will help with this. it is a different way to make a trade-off with FileMaker Server backups. So normally we don't talk about this. We don't talk about additional database folders or any of this stuff. If on your standard, if you're going to set one up yourself, or honestly, even for most businesses, you'll set one up. You'll have your databases in a folder. You'll have hourly, maybe daily and weekly backups for sure. And those are just going to be going wherever they go. If it's on site, we'll tell you to have an external hard drive and that sort of stuff. But there's a different way to balance that, because for example, if you follow our general recommendations, which is you're going to have an entire day's worth of hourly backups kept, 2 weeks worth of daily backups kept, and like a financial quarter of weekly copies of your database, it's like, I think that's like 51 backups, or is a big number. And so just on a basic level, if you think about it, you're trying to, however much container data that you have, that needs to be backed up every single hour that this thing is running. And if you have either a lot of data or a lot of files, or if you're unlucky enough to have both, that's a challenge, not least for disk space, but just literally getting it all done. The time period it takes to move the files. So what we do is we kind of split that off. I call it a container data split.
With FileMaker Server, it is still doing the hard linking technology, Jacob. It kind of went away and then it kind of came back, it seems like. So what hard linking is that if you have, let's just say you have one single FileMaker file and it's running on the server, and I back up every 15, 20 minutes, at least we're supposed to on DBW4. Once an hour is kind of like the minimum, I would say, for mission critical businesses. But say between 1 in the morning and 2 in the morning, no one touches it whatsoever. FileMaker Server at 2 in the morning goes, hey, I'm going to do a backup. It checks to see if anything was changed since the 1 o'clock. Nothing has changed. So it actually doesn't back up the file, but it does a little inspection to make sure the file hasn't changed. If it does change it, it rewrites the file. So here's the rub. So if you say, well, I have 3 files and 1,000 photos that are externally stored, external GIFs or whatever they are, images, things like that, it's going to check your file, then it's going to check all those 1,000 files. Now, you might say, well, why can't it handle 1 million small files or 3 million small files? Because it's actually, even though it's not writing each of the files, it's doing 3 million checks to get through 3 million as fast as it can. Meanwhile, your server is backing up and people are paused, right? Kind of that action, right? So that's kind of the rub with this. And we ran into a major customer who I actually had to send a note to their CEO to put the beat down on their team, because their servers started running out of backup space, and being IT guys first and foremost, what they ended up doing is that they decided they didn't need the backups. Like, we'll back up every couple days or whatever it's going to be, because hey, drive space is expensive. We don't really want to spend the money on it, and FileMaker is kind of like this optional kind of thing, right? So so the road to hell is frequently paved with IT guys who don't know anything about FileMaker, right? I'll just warn everyone up front, right? We've seen that 2 or 3 times this week, Jacob. You've had at least 2 or 3 times this week. Separate companies, separate IT teams, and all of them are on the road to hell. I mean, the road to hell is where your company is FileMaker and it's gone. It's not coming back. You can kiss your ass goodbye, okay? And I'm being very frank with you, all of you here. Joking time's over. Very serious about this. So if you have an IT, now Jacob's an IT guy, but he's got like his world, half his world or more of it's in FileMaker. So the guy takes it pretty damn seriously, right? That's awesome. That's what you want your IT people to be like. They want to be like this guy over here, because you want them to take it seriously. A lot of them are like, hey, it's Windows, it's great. FileMaker's stupid, it's Apple, screw whatever. Even though that they're paid to keep all that stuff running, we've seen some real belligerent stuff go on just in the last week. And to the point where I had to go over everyone's head from my CEO desk to the other CEO and say, listen, they're playing danger, loose and fast with your data. You're running a real risk of losing it. I said, strictly speaking, RCC is not under contract to help you with this, but I'm reaching out to you to let you know that you might lose your ass and have no backup. And that, like, the CEO is like, so half the time you send those out and the CEO doesn't give a shit. And the other half the time, they like start pulling guns and knives and get serious about it real fast, right? Yeah. So anyway,
they sit up straight.
they sit up straight and they're like, whoosh. So the idea is that I guess with this whole idea, with this, back to this strategy of backing up, one, take it seriously. Two, don't trust your IT guys to do it. If you're an IT person here and you don't like FileMaker, then I don't even know why you're watching live stream. So none of those people are actually here. Watch your IT people. Make sure they're not just blowing off the FileMaker server, right? That's important. And then if you're got a lot of containers, either a lot of volume or a lot of separate files, you need to look at what Jacob's talking about. So Jacob, back to you as I frame the conversation.
Sure. So, so basically what we do, I call it a split container setup, and that's because you literally take the container data and put it somewhere else. There's a feature in FileMaker Server that enables you to do this called the additional databases directory, and I'll flip over off camera and onto screen share in just a second to sort of walk through how you'd set that up. It's a little persnickety. It requires some messing around with the container data and that stuff, but we'll walk through it. But the basics of it is just not so much on a tech level, but on a strategy level. What you're doing is you're separating how often the documents and stuff are backed up, like just separating out, all right, what would be appropriate for the documents versus the record data, and answering those two questions differently. So for record data, as Richard said, you want at least hourly backups. If your business moves fast enough, perhaps backups every 15 minutes of the record data. That would be wholly inappropriate for most businesses as far as their container data goes. Most of that stuff, it's invoices being emailed out, it's in people's downloads folders, it's in their email outboxes, whatever. If you had to get 5 or 10 of those documents back, it wouldn't actually, it'd be a little expenditure of your business, but it wouldn't be much. The crash would be much more disruptive in the first place. But as far as the record data, which is often like people typing notes in and stuff that's a little less easy to get back, you want that stuff to come back, to lose the minimal amount of data possible. And so basically what we're doing is we're looking at that question and going, all right, we can answer these, we can look at the strategy of these two things differently and answer what that strategy should be differently. So for example, all of our customer systems, split system or not, they'll always, we default to hourly backups, and some customers want to customize how many that tech, but I already said, 24 hours is our 24 hourlies is our standard. However, for container data, we don't even support hourly backups. It's daily and weekly. And that's because, again, most businesses just don't move that fast. Maybe invoicing day at the end of the month or something, when they, you actually generate 100 documents that day, but every other day of the month, it's going to be, 5, 10, something, some small number that it's easy to get back to where you started. So, all right, so I'm going to flip over to the screen and walk through setting this up. Okay, so, and this is our little stream PC that we've been using for these. So here's FileMaker Server. You guys are all familiar with this. This feature exists in and works in every version of FileMaker Server I'm familiar with. I'm sure if you go back far enough, there's one that doesn't, but I don't know when that was added, so it was probably a very long time ago. I've worked with 10 and 12 servers and they do this, so I think it's we'll just say well supported. There were changes, so as of I think FileMaker Server 17 and newer with the new admin console, it used to be that you could have multiple additional database directories, and with those multiple additional container data directories, and there's basically you get one now. So you have your default database location, and then you have an additional database directory. And one of the things worth noting here that is not super straightforward. So when you do a split, and so this is configured already, so I'll just have this on screen here. One of the things that's not quite obvious here is the two additional database directories here. One is where the databases go, and the other is where the container data go. Those are a pair. So if you have a database in the default directory, so in this case it'd be C, program files, FileMaker Server, databases. And that's where that sample database, if you guys are familiar with that, if you've ever done an install or gotten onto a fresh one and seen that little sample database Claris gives us, that thing's in the the C drive or wherever FileMaker Server was installed, its default database directory. Those, if you put a database in there that has container data, they live in that folder. In the default directory, they're side by side. If you need to split them out, the databases themselves have to be moved to the additional database folder. Or if you open your database, basically you'll see no containers because the data will be missing because it's not where the server's expecting it to be. And that won't hurt anything, but you'll need to fix it before anybody screams. So
far, so good.
Yep. So we set these up. This is scripted, which is why all the names are really standard. This is on AWS, so we have a script that sets all of this up for us. But basically, so we'd go over here. In one of the demos that we were working with yesterday, we were working with this PHP version of FileMaker Starting Point for the data API demos yesterday. I also had a FMSP 20, a random one lying around that's on the server and live as well. And so as you can see in this is our additional directory. There's no containers here. And the way that you know that there's no containers here is because there is no RC data FMS folder. RC is remote container data FileMaker server.
That's correct. People used to joke at Claris about it wasn't Richard Carlton when I was down there. So, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So you see no RC data FMS folder here. Let me demo the most canonical version of this. So if we go to the sample database, which would be in here, FileMaker server, data. Whoops, not database server. My bad. Databases. So you see the sample folder, and hey, it's got an RC data FMS, and it has no container data, so there's nothing in here. But that's where you'd expect it to be. It'd be right next to the database. And so this will be true. If you put a database in your default directory, this is where your container data will be. If you put it, if you use the additional database directory like this, if you set a separate container data directory, that's where the container data needs to be. It will not look for it in this location. Your users will see file missing errors inside of the little, if you have like an interactive container box, it'll say file missing actually. And people will be having a bad day. So you saw that. So we go over here. You've seen the configured, it's on the, oops, let me minimize this one to get it out of the way. So you can see the setting back here. We have FileMaker containers. So we're on the app drive. We go to container data. And hey, there's that folder we're looking for. And then one of these actually has a file in it. And I think it's this one. So you can go in here, and this will look just like containers have always been. You have a files folder. And then what? This is the old thing's named after FMSP3. And then you have a securely stored container in here. So there's an image in here somewhere. I don't know where. But
yeah, but it's encrypted. You're not going to find it. So it's been encrypted. When you see it buried in a structure like that, it's encrypted.
Yeah, this is our image right here. As you can tell, there's nothing. I can't open it or deal with it or any of that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
it's where's he at? That is this guy right here, Mr. Ryan. So that's that's the image right there. Okay. So that's in this folder. So that's the basics of what you do. Setting this up is a little persnickety because everything has to be down for you to actually set this up. You have to, like, if you're gonna, like if I were to take the sample file, it doesn't have any images in it, so it's like a bad example. But if I were to take the sample file and try and do a split container to it, you have to close it on the server, and then you have to take the database file and move it over to the additional databases directory, and then you have to take that RC data FMS folder and bring that over to your container data directory as well.
Okay, so let me reemphasize one thing. So if we're going to do the split, you just can't move the containers. You have to move the database to the additional database. Let's go back here. You have to move the database to here, right? Take it out of the C drive, move it to here, and then the containers come out of C and they go over to here, right? Correct?
Yep.
Do I have that right? Okay.
Yes.
So you just can't leave the database in C and then move the containers over here. That's not an approved process, right?
Yep. And I've had customers do that, and they call me crying because they have none of their documents and they don't understand what's wrong. And we come in and we close the database down and we move it into the additional database directory and open it back up again, and suddenly all the documents exist.
So once you do this correctly, then how do we set up the different backup schedules? You just want to just cover that briefly, real quick.
Sure. So for our Amazon servers, we have a scripted process that. kind of handles all of this stuff for you. If you are doing, if you were to do something like this on an on-site server, for example, if you have a beautiful and wonderful NVMe SSD sitting under your FMP12 files, and then maybe a similarly fast backup drive or something like that for the record data, but you've got, someone said they paid $100 for a 5 terabyte drive or something. Perfect. You're going to put a terabyte of whatever documents, images, whatever you're trying to store on that drive instead. You're going to be responsible for backing all of that data up. As you can see right here, FileMaker Server is not backing that data up. That is intentional. That's what we want here. But what that means is it's on you. And if you're not taking that action, well, you don't have any document backups. And if that's a problem for your business, you have just learned about it. So fix it, basically. The way that we handle this is our Amazon servers have basically like a PowerShell script, a couple sets of PowerShell scripts on them, and there's a program called 7-Zip. If you all are familiar with it, it runs beautifully on the command line, and you can tell it, hey, zip this folder up and put it in this location, and it goes great. And you can tell it how much to try and scrunch the files and that kind of stuff. And so we basically just have some scripts that do that on a hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever basis. And so there's one set of those on our servers that run that grab the record data and put that wherever it goes. There's like backups on the server. Some of them come out of FileMaker. There's backups in S3 for people that have Dropbox, OneDrive, whatever, that kind of stuff, Google Drive.
So to be clear, we run our script schedule first, right? And then we grab it from there if we do anything, correct?
Yeah, so the way that we do it, yeah, so to walk through what RCC does, and this is true for 4, by the way. So we have this script right here. I call it hourly S3 to call it out as a separate thing. It is an hourly backup schedule that keeps only one copy of the data. And so what our scripted system does is it just grabs this folder. So, cool. And then zips it up and puts it wherever it goes. And that's a discussion that happens.
And for those of you wondering about this, so there's different, the zip file format is a file format, but the algorithms that go into it, there's better ones and worse ones. And 7-Zip, probably it's not even the latest one. It's been out for probably 10 years, but it's way, way, way more fuel efficient for compressing things down than other zip algorithms, right? So if, if you want to address that real quick,
Yeah, and we did some studying a couple of years ago. There's one that might be better, like slightly better than 7-Zip. It's called Z Standard, ZSTD. I don't know how to say it, but it's a compression built by Facebook. Basically, they were like, we do all this web stuff and we compress an amazing amount of text, and so they built a thing to do that like awesomely. And so you can use that. There's scripts and tooling and stuff for it. We actually don't use it at RCC, basically because I can't get any desktop software that supports it, or 2 years ago couldn't. Maybe that's changed today. And so it's really difficult for me to turn it over to one of you all and say, yeah, like go learn how to use a ZSTD file. Like, okay. With 7-Zip, I can just tell you, put 7-Zip on your computer, or if you're on a Mac, there's an application called Keka. I think it's Keka. And that one will also do lots of different types of zips for Mac. So.
All right, so a couple questions that are on topic. So Ruben asks, should you encrypt the folders? Let me address this real quick. So I'd use my mouse, but my cat is laying on my mouse, so I can't turn my face on, so you just have to imagine me waving my hand. So, so when your FileMaker file is saving containers into a folder, what ends up happening is that if you don't do encryption, it will take all the files and stick them in one folder. And if you have operating systems are great at sticking 5,000 or 10,000 files in a folder. In the old days, they could barely do 1,000. But say you have 1 million files, an operating system can have 1 million different directories with a file in each one. That's okay. But having 1 million files in a single directory is really a problem for any operating system. I know that Macs and Windows both equally had this issue. They keep getting slightly better along the way. But the idea is that if you do encryption, it takes these files and all the images and it breaks them all down, if that makes sense. It breaks them down in different directories. So you don't end up with all the images or all your containers in one single directory. So normally I'm not the biggest fan of like encryption by default, because for most of you, no one gives a crap about your random, you know, invoice for someone's cat grooming cleaning business or whatever, right? But in this case, it actually helps with performance because the encryption actually separates them in different directories, keeps everything spread out so you don't get a million files in one directory, right? So, Jacob, are you trying to find that for people? Is that what we're doing?
I'm showing the, bringing the storage up.
Yep, so here it is, the secure storage. So I generally recommend doing secure by default. And, hey, I hear things breaking down there. Get out of there. The cat is hacking my network. Get out of here, cat. So that was Ruben's question. So encryption on, but not for the reason you might think. David Angel says you probably don't get a lot of compression on containers.
Correct.
Yeah, probably true.
When they are set as secure, that's correct.
Yeah.
If you do secure storage, we don't. So just actually for clarity purposes, we don't even actually compress them. When you're because most of our customers do secure external storage, and so if it's secure, that means it's encrypted. Encrypted data doesn't compress, frankly. It literally does not. And so we tell our zip thing, don't even try. Just dump everything into a big fat blob, and that is, it's fast. All it has to do is sit there and read all the files, and then it's done. So,
okay, so and then Ellen asked a question about RAID. So I guess we could talk briefly about RAID since we have time, because
it's a backup.
Yeah, so she's talking about RAID 10 versus RAID. So RAID 1 and RAID 2, or RAID 0 and RAID 1, striping and mirroring were the original RAIDs. And there was RAID 5, where you'd have like, you could have 5 or 6 drives, and any one of the drives could die, but you'd still be okay, but the performance would drop off. So let me caution you, a RAID is fine is for the people that are here. Remember, we had a conversation earlier about IT people who don't know FileMaker and don't really care, okay? And we've had a lot of problems with these people. They have problems with us. They hate us using FileMaker. They wish we were using Oracle. They hate us, so blah, blah, blah. There's back and forth that goes on. So here's the rub with RAID. What people will do is I say, yeah, RAID's fine, and this is what they hear. They hear, okay, we're going to build our Windows server with our C drive on RAID, and that is our backups and everything, okay? Because I said RAID was good, therefore they should apply it there, and then they don't set the backups or do any other backups because that is their backup. Isn't that good enough for backups, right? This is what Ellen says. Now, I'm not saying Ellen's this person, but this is the kind of question I get from an IT person. Hey, we like RAID 5 with SSDs or RAID 10 with spinning drives or whatever they're going to do. Is it a good way to go? So you can lose a drive and not lose the data. That's all correct statements. However, you still only have one copy of the file running on that RAID system if there's no backups running. It's like the one that's running. And what happens if FileMaker server crashes? Then you've crashed your one file and there are no backups. RAID doesn't help you when FileMaker server doesn't close the files correctly and it destroys your system, right? So you've got to be careful when someone, it's not so much that RAID's not good, it's just that when someone asks a question, they're typically an IT person, and 2, you're giving them a blank check to ignore the backup schedules, what typically I have seen. Jacob, I mean, you have any thoughts on that? But it's
yeah, and well, I can tell you where the disconnect is for a lot of people. Most people are used to dealing with, you say Oracle or something, but MySQL or MS SQL or any of these, and most of the competitor, they're not direct competitors because FileMaker is its own thing, of course. But if you're just, it's a database. Most people aren't trained to deal with databases that are not ACID compliant, which all of the other ones that people have heard of commonly are. And what that means is if you, for example, grabbed a copy of a database off disk, we'll just say it happens really fast. And so there aren't, other concerns that might go in there, but, you grab a copy of the database out from under the database server, that thing will work. You could take it to a different database server, launch, if it was MySQL database, you launch MySQL on top of it, and it'll go great. And it'll have a database, and you could start hitting it with, requests or whatever. So that's not true of FileMaker, because if you don't close the files, you're effed.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so
So ACID compliance is something that Claris has tried to work towards. I don't know that they can ever quite get there. And if you had a conversation with them, they would. I think it's a sore subject. So for those of you, we're all amongst friends here. There's probably not any Claris people here watching. If you're a Claris person, just turn off the computer and go away. But Claris has been working towards the ACID compliance. The rub is that the part that makes FileMaker so awesome and so easy to use also makes it non-ACID-y, right? And basically it's this database engine called Draco. You could come up, and I think they keep changing the code name for it now, but there's this database engine they created. It's proprietary. It makes FileMaker as rich and creamy. It's like they used to have these commercials about the Three Musketeers bar, and inside is creamy goodness, nougat and creamy goodness, whatever the hell creamy goodness is. Well, FileMaker has creamy goodness inside. That's why we're all here. It's why it kicks so much ass and why we use it every damn day, right? And so we love the rich, creamy goodness. Other systems, you crack them open, it's like a brick. You're chewing on a brick or tinfoil. It's really horrible. So wouldn't you rather chew on creamy goodness? Okay, the downside is that creamy goodness is not ACID compliant, which means that if you just unplug the server, the file could be damaged. It has to do a little maintenance before it closes it. Claris has been working on trying to do this. Remember we had the system, the problem started with 17 and, or maybe it was 18, but they had I'm spacing on it. It was the record. There was that whole option that we had turned off.
You called it Pulsar. Yes.
Pulsar, page level locking and startup restoration. Two different things. Page level locking was a performance boost. Startup restoration was this idea where they were trying to make it ACID-y, and if it opened up a crashed file, it would attempt to reintegrate the bit to change bits to it. It's called, roll back and roll forward or roll back in the world of ACID SQL systems, right? You have this data, you're going to roll, then you're going to roll these changes forward or roll them backwards. And they were trying to get to that point. And I remember the conversation because the people that were asking the same questions I did, and Claris ignored all of us. And we said, why were you doing it a certain way? And Claris wouldn't answer the technical questions as to our conversation. So we came out and said, we don't recommend it. It was me and Soliant having the very same kind of reaction to this, is that if you're not going to have the confidence to explain to developers how it works and how you have confidence in it, then we should not necessarily recommend it to our customers. And so we told all our customers not to do it. Of course, only the lead development companies knew about this. We warned all of you at the time because we started these broadcasts back last year. We said, don't use it, turn it off. It's on by default, turn it off. And then 6 months later, people who didn't hear the warning had this thing on. It was starting to make a mess of the database. It was trying to do restoration or roll forward, and it couldn't roll it forward without damaging the file. So Claris has tried this. I don't know if they'll ever be ACID, but from my perspective, would you rather, if you want ACID, go get a brick and chew on a brick. I don't think there's any creamy, rich goodness inside systems that are ACID, right? When was the last time you heard about Microsoft SQL making people warm and fuzzy and happy? But it's ACID as hell, right? Pull the plug on it, the file's good. So that's what Jacob's talking about. It's really, the way you did it, Jacob, is awesome. I can't do a better job of describing it, but it's an important conversation. Part of what we are is we are what we are. We love FileMaker. And why are we here? Because of the rich, creamy goodness. I'm telling you why and how there's rich, creamy goodness. So Claris realized that their attempt at ACID was bad, and they killed it and pulled it out, right? And then and then took the pieces that were working and put them back in 19 kind of stealthily. And that's why 19.2.1 server is actually faster. It's improved. So Claris didn't do anything.
And it is.
It is. It is. So I got questions here. Any questions? Agreed? True?
I do lots of talking to clients about potential performance benefits because what they're targeting is people with kind of older databases, either older or more complex, where you have to go out, you have a grandchild or a great grandchild table occurrence, you have to jump all the way out to go find this little piece of information that's a related data. Those specific types of operations are what they're targeting for speed right now, and we're not talking impressive in any other field would be a 30% performance boost or something like that. We're talking multiples, like 8 to 20 times faster for those operations. And so I have customers that basically they only changed from 18 to 19 and did a little better system tuning, basically, for the number of users and stuff that they had. And they had processes that went from like a fistful of minutes to a fistful of seconds, like 30, it's one of those like 6 minutes to 35 seconds type thing. So it's for particular processes. Certain stuff, yeah, it'd be a little faster. It'd be a little boost for certain parts of it from 19, but it's especially effective with things where you're going out on the table occurrences really far to go grab stuff, which is common in things like invoicing and inventory and stuff like that.
So Foxy Jack says, after the show, I'm going to go and work on chew on some rich, creamy goodness. Yeah, it's true. I mean, this is why we're here. I mean, because you can do such great stuff with FileMaker, and it works so well. And that's the truth. Otherwise, listen, I'm not going to sit here and do live streams and tell you a bunch of bullshit, okay? Simon Day says, I know it's not FileMaker Server, but how would you recommend backing up a local file and secure container files? So Simon Day is one of these guys that doesn't use FileMaker Server, and I have the container folder and the cloud folder being backed up with my machine. Damn.
I want to yeah, I want to ask, have you tested any of those backups? Which is probably not appropriately nice, but that's very concerning so I'm not going to be super duper nice, but you should have a server, because I don't consider what you have described there to be a working backup system. It may work by chance. So iCloud will be an issue because iCloud, like Dropbox, like all other of those file synchronization systems, they don't understand FileMaker. They don't understand FileMaker Pro. They don't know when they should grab a copy of that file, which is really important. Because if it's backing it up while the file is open in FileMaker Pro, that isn't a working backup, because the file hasn't been closed. So I don't want to be in trouble here with Simon Day. So Clarice is here. This is the backup puppet. And so yeah. Simon,
do you have good backups? No, you don't have good backups? You should go test your backups, right? Yeah. Richard can't say this, so Clarice, go test your stuff. Don't be a goofball and hope that it works. Okay?
So this is not me saying, this is Clarice. So if you want complaints, send complaints to support at rcconsulting.com and address to Clarice. All right, next question. I love Simon Day. He's been here every day. He's like our reliable people. So how do you can't get mad at our reliable people. You just have to tell them that, test the backups. Listen, if you're making the backup while the file's running, you're screwed. Here's the basic English, right? Oh, I'm sorry, Clarice.
If you're making a backup while the file is being run, you're screwed. If you close the file, then you make the backup, you're okay. Any questions?
Any questions, anyone? Questions? So will the container data be okay?
The container data will be fine because it's not in a state of open. We're not worried about Word files and images being ACID compliant, right? We're worried about the FMP12 file. Yes?
That's the one that you can get really messed up. I would still be frankly nervous about the container data, if only because I've seen weird stuff happen with sync things where it won't get all the files, or some things locked, and so it doesn't get picked up on some backup or other, whatever stuff like that can happen. That's not what I would worry about too hard. The FMP12 though is much more important, and that is where the kind of technical risk comes in as far as using things like iCloud or Dropbox to back stuff up. Static files on disk, probably fine. Honestly.
Okay, so Simon, that was some tough love. Ed says we're soaking up the words of wisdom. The words of wisdom is don't trust your backups, and if you have IT people who are just IT people and not FileMaker people, don't trust them either. Nothing personal, but yes. Yeah, that was a great movie, Russell Bueller. So, any other questions that we have? This is a good topic, and it reminds us, because it's always like, hey, because listen, I totally get it. So let's have a moment, okay? My tips for you, okay? 1, buy FileMaker Server. Use FileMaker Server. If you don't want to run your own FileMaker Server, go buy FileMaker Cloud 2. Whatever. It's more money. Don't care. Just go buy it, okay? Generally, it's more money. If you buy the super amazing essential deal, then you can get it for about what you're going to cost on the other, okay? But I think that Claris would love to take the Essential deal and get rid of it and charge full price for everyone. Full price is about 25,
Well,
25
totally will.
Yeah, it's $25 to $35 per user per month. It's not cheap. So
I'm
that's
expecting 2023, 2024 region for them to eliminate Essentials or something.
You think so? Where did you hear
Yeah.
that? Did you hear that?
Oh, I didn't hear it. When they originally announced Essentials after everyone screamed because the regular version was so expensive, I'll have to see if I can find where I read it. They had verbiage in the original announcement that basically said this is trial or introductory pricing, and it will only last for a certain number of years, and then like it goes away. And I don't remember what the year was, but it was 2023, 2024-ish. And so basically they're going to allow some onboarding time with cheap pricing, and then they want everybody on standard eventually or whatever. So I don't know if they may change that plan, but
I think it's all month to month with them down there right now. So Carol's there. Welcome, Carol. Don from Fremont's there. Welcome, Don. And then Michelle is there just watching and listening. So real quick, there is a question here from Moki. Does RCC have a set price for setting up FileMaker Server on AWS? So I guess, okay, so when we set up, I'm going to help Jacob out, and then I'm going to get ready, but here comes the ball. I'm taking a softball. I'm going to throw it to Jacob in a second. So people come to us, either one of three things happens. They say, I want Cloud 2, in which case they go buy it from Claris and mostly deal with Claris on it, except that Claris tech support's kind of, whatever. And so, because you can always get a hold of Jacob, he's Mr. Reliable, and then we have a weekend crew that covers for him when he's on time off. So people either get Cloud 2, the online service, but most people buy FileMaker Server. If they work with us, we set up the server, but we only bill for our time to set it up. We don't try to front end it and like take the Amazon bill and mark it up and give it to you. You get the Amazon pricing direct. You get set it up with your own credit card. And so that's what Jacob will do. He will set up Amazon for you. So the question, Jacob, is what does it take to run FileMaker Server on Amazon AWS? You were playing with the pricing today already on this. I know.
Yep.
And then how long does it take you to actually set it up for someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Oregon Dean says Mac, or he wants to know about Linux, either one. So
Mac or Linux or on Linux. Actually, because Claris just said we're not doing CentOS FileMaker Server anymore, except for the version that's already out. We're not doing Linux until they have released probably the second version of their Ubuntu, which is the new one. They just announced all of this. There's no Ubuntu installer for FileMaker Server that is available to the public. And so at some point that will be released, and then the version after that I will probably once again begin endorsing that, because
we don't want to install something right now that's already end of life and is dead, right? So because then we're setting people up on a server that this is going to kapoof. So what does it take on AWS? You have prices?
Anyway, So for Amazon, for my time, we start at 2 hours. For smaller servers, for things where you don't have, ODBC and 17 different plugins and all this stuff, you can usually get it done pretty close to that actual time period. And if you have an actually small database, it'll be about that time total, including migrations and SSL and like any of that kind of stuff. I just give people a round number because we're really nice about it. But if you need a bigger system or you have more complex requirements, basically, might take longer than 2 hours, and so we basically bill for whatever that time period is. I can give like kind of example ballpark pricing for certain FileMaker servers that run on Amazon, but frankly, to give you any decent kind of number, I'd have to know more about the solution, what kind of backup requirements that you have, if they're different from
let's say 5 users and they have a 5 GB or less FileMaker file. Which is going to cover a lot of people. So 5, would they run on a medium or a large? Would you run them on a medium?
Let's see here.
We can't see your screen, by the way, or we can, but it's not doing anything, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. So for that one would be probably right at the break. But if you had a 5 GB database and no container data, you could probably get away with being on a medium. It's probably going to honestly stress it out a little bit with the backups. And so if you see performance issues, we would consider bumping you to a large.
Can you show your screen, or where you're on a website, or can you look at?
Oh yeah, I have a giant.
I know
it's too big. It's too big to actually show. It's not.
I know, but we're trying to. So what's the cost per T3? So it's a T3 medium. Yep. It's 30. The basic is $31 a month. That's the number right there?
Yeah, just that's for the CPU and the memory, and then you can this spreadsheet I've been working on. I'm not 100% sure about some of the numbers here, but again, I've been working on it, and so one of the ways that I test my math is to confirm everything. But for example, if you had just a 5 GB flat database, there's no container data or something like that. Here's your hard drives. Here's this. Here's the different calculated things, and so you'll get your price over here, and this is like highly rounded up in a lot of different places. In fact.
Okay, that's on a per month basis.
Yeah. So one of the things that I added this morning that is very interesting is because when you're on Amazon, you have to pay bandwidth costs. And that is specifically off-site backups. So stuff within Amazon, stuff that stays totally within the same region of Amazon, in fact, is free, totally free. You don't pay anything for it. You also don't pay anything for any traffic that comes into your server. So if you're uploading documents to that's free too.
So it's this column here that's throwing that number, because those numbers look really high to me, right?
Yes, correct. Correct.
Okay.
So, and that's the one that I added this morning. So for example, you see that's almost half the cost, because 60 is what we tell most people. So what I've been messing with this morning is trying to add that bandwidth cost in here trying to figure out what reasonable looks like, so I can give people, because it's like, I'm trying to figure out what a good magic number is to tell people, because it needs to be kind of right for most people and probably an over projection, so that when they get the bill, they'll save a little money versus what I tell them. You want to over project it a little bit.
I understand, but hang on, let me just explore this a second. I get you're focusing on something that I'm not. Yeah, focus on how. So if we're backing up to S3 though, there's no cost to that, because you're in the same region.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So most of our offsite backups we go to S3. So for this chart, so we're showing this chart. Of course, we weren't planning on showing this chart. This was a server cost with an offsite Amazon backup, right? So it's a little overly inflated. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Very specifically, it is if you have on your Amazon server, you have Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, etc. Reliably having a copy of your data every hour or whatever the backup system runs. So
and I do that, but I don't mind pinning that. But some people are really cost sensitive, like Simon's over here, very cost sensitive, and so if he backed up to S3, which is Amazon's kind of giant FTP in the cloud, in the sky, you're looking at this on a monthly basis, and then you're or less. Yeah.
No. The S column on this chart is only
the offsite backup,
accounting for offsite. So if you don't use OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive, something like that for and you're just there's backups on the server and there's backups in S3, and you're cool with that basically, this column goes away. The S column is 0.
Okay. And then this actually takes into account 2 hours of labor too. So it's advertised. Is that what you're doing?
Not. It doesn't go into this number actually.
Okay.
I built this for a client that wanted to know actual, like a real TCO number, total cost of ownership for a server, and that included setup, configuration, SSLs, just everything. Like, what is it? Because they're going to set up a fleet of these things, or they're going to contract RCC to set up a fleet of these things.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But
I have a column here.
For most of you, you're going to scratch out. You're going to scratch out the offsite backup cost, right? Where'd that go? You'd scratch that out. So you would actually take
I see what it's doing.
For everyone here, you're going to scratch that out. So you're going to have this price here, and then you're going to add data movement around a little bit. But you're talking about what, $35 a month, $40 a month, something like that typically?
If I zero this, that is a reasonable price for 5-person, 5 gigs, full backups.
5 gig database, right? Yeah. And full, yeah.
Yep.
So there you go.
And that includes hourly backups of the 5 gig database.
Yep.
So
cool. There you go.
Yeah,
right.
That's a decent number. And just to be clear, that's around. So as you can see, the SSL single site DV, that is rounded up. So the actual bill from Amazon will be 60 basically, and then there will be an additional component cost for the SSL certificate somewhere else.
Which is you're gonna pay for 2 years at a time. So you if you want to amortize that, break it across the months, that gives you your per month cost, right? So yeah.
To answer Simon Day's question, does that 5 gigabytes cover the container data? No, it does not. We specified at the start of this example that there's a 5 gigabyte flat file database and no container data, no external container data at all.
Well, it doesn't. Your combined snapshot size is 5 gigs, is what basically we're saying, more or less. So, yeah. So it's the database size and 0 container, and then you could do 4 gigabytes of container, right? And then you're basically
but that's a different thing. And do you see how the price is different?
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying.
Because you're running the backups differently for the containers.
Yeah. And once there's a threshold past which our thing will automatically put you in a split container setup, whether or not you want one, because I'm not asking. Because as you saw, this number dumped when you do that. There's a point. Yeah, there's a point past which it immediately makes sense, and that point is much lower than I thought it was. I sat down and ran the math. I think that was late last year, and it turns out it's actually over 4 gigabytes, which is really low, much lower than I was expecting. I was expecting 8, 10, over 20 definitely, right?
Yeah.
No, you're saving money after 4 gigs.
Okay, so backup. So Megan's like, well, okay, so let's say it's 60. Let's put it back to 60 just in our heads. And Megan goes, well, then that's $60 per person per month. No, it's 60 for the server divided by the 5 people. So it's $10 a person, right? Basically, at the end of the day, when you guys go out the door with Essentials is like $15 per user per month. That's about what this costs if you set up your own FileMaker server. Does that make sense? If you set up your own FileMaker server, you do this stuff, you do the math, you come out to anywhere between $13 and $16 and $17 per user per month. Okay, it's pretty damn cheap. Okay, but people see the bills like, oh, it's $800, $900 for the software, and then and then we get into this thing like Simon is trying to not spend the money because he doesn't want to pay, but then then try not to lose any data, right? Would be really great. So anyway, so
I think I can see that. Yeah, we can see that. So, and that's what this column is right here, the AB and AC total user cost. So that one, the number in green, the 152.93, that is the actual total cost. That includes licensing. It includes, for example, my time to set it up if it only takes 2 hours, server cost. It's an everything.
Yeah, and that still has offsite server backups on it, right? So try not to freak everyone out about this. This data in here is beyond mission critical data. So it's not nuclear weapon secrets, but of equivalent level security. And so that's why we're paying the extra money for the offsite backups on this. So yeah, so this is the server cost per month, and you're going to divide that. So if that's your server, you're going to divide that by the users. So if you have 5 people, then that's going to be $10 per person per month, right? So yeah, so I mean, if you bought your software and then you pay your monthly Amazon bill, although typically you get the best deal with Amazon, you pay a year in advance on that too. So you pay everything up in advance, and then you have a year of using stuff without any bills, right? That's kind of how that works for me. So anyway, David Angel says, could you have OneDrive in the same Windows server and make a backup to the OneDrive directory? And
sure.
Well,
but you're going to pay for that.
He's going to, okay, because Amazon's watching the data move off that machine and out their network, and then that's where they're going to ding. They're going to ding you on your bill, right? That's how that works. Doesn't matter if you, I don't know how you could get it. You're trying to move the data without Amazon seeing you move the data, but they're like pretty much smarter than all of us put together. So yeah, they're going to, if someone could weasel it, they would and have, and they probably have closed that loophole.
And what I'm pointing out is, yes, you can have it so it If you have some kind of like we have, you have a zip process that takes a copy of your data, dumps it into OneDrive every day, for example, every hour, whatever you need. That's fine. What I was pointing out is that for all of those, don't forget to factor in the bandwidth usage for that, because if you're dumping a file into OneDrive, it has to, the program on the server, OneDrive, the app, has to upload it to Microsoft, to your little spot on their servers. That upload costs you money. It's not on Amazon. It's 9 cents per gigabyte, which is why when I turn on the bandwidth column, everybody starts losing their minds, because if your backups are working actually flawlessly, reliably, and you're uploading hourly copies of your data to Dropbox, OneDrive, whatever, it's not free.
Yeah,
it's not free.
We at RCC we tend to do offsites once a day maybe or something.
Once a day, correct? Yeah.
So real quick, total. So Moki wants to know how come the green column got so big really fast, and how as opposed to.
What does that mean?
For the green column, what's making it jump $100 per row memory? Why he's trying to understand why.
Licensing. Oh, I said that. That's a total cost of ownership. That includes licensing. It also includes my time to set the server up. So the 152, that's your actual cost for the first year. Or if you want to look at the total year, it's $1,800 for a base level FileMaker server, 5 gigs, 5 users, 5 seat license.
With off Amazon backups, which is probably a third of that cost at least. So that would go down by a third. Most of you don't.
No.
Oh, is that off? Did you turn
that off?
That's off?
Yeah, I turned that off because everyone was freaking out about the numbers.
Okay. So
I think I can do that.
Can you?
So
let me see.
Yeah, so if I do that, and then that do the right thing, 2.
Yep.
Yes, cool. So if I go back over here, so this is with offsite backups to, Dropbox or OneDrive or whatever.
Yeah. So that's the rub. So the total cost out the door was either $1,800, and that was with light software and everything. So your total software cost was out the door for everyone, right?
Everything.
Everything
Actually everything. Yeah. All the costs. It's my time to set it up. Your licensing, that if you're going to buy it from RCC for a 5-seat, whatever, all that stuff. It's one round number if you're trying to get a handle on what the thing will cost you per year. But what that also says is, if it's $175 a month, your business is solved. If you have a CRM and you're doing inventory and whatever inside of FileMaker, stuff like that, that's it. It's one kind of, it's like a fat internet bill basically.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So and then if you're trying to calculate that for 5 users, you divide that by 5, right? So there you go, or 10, or whatever
per user cost.
Yeah. How do you compare with on-premise? Well, you have to buy the hardware, and we're not doing that because we're talking about server setup, and this is a specific chart for a specific customer. But
all of these numbers are specific to basically Amazon. So if you were going to try and do on-premise, what you'd do is you'd come up with the same set of specs that I'd punch into a sheet like this, and then you'd go and get quotes for servers and whatever, all that kind of stuff. You'd do all that due diligence out, and then come up and compare what those numbers are. And probably the upfront cost for an on-site install will be more expensive because you're buying a physical, you might have to buy racks, backup power, failover internet or whatever your various considerations are. So you'll write a much bigger check up front. But the other end of that is if you're committed to on-site infrastructure, or you have a really good reason why you can't use the cloud or something like that, it may actually save you money over time. Some customers, you buy a server. Hey, if the hardware never fails in 5 years, you only write the check once. So,
okay. So, Oregon Dean has, and we're going to try to land the plane here, but we're still getting good questions. As long as we have good questions, we'll keep going. What is the best EC2 hardware at Amazon? T2, T3, M5. So T3 is a faster version of T2. They have faster SSDs and stuff on there. So definitely T3 better than T2.
Yeah, I wouldn't, at this point, I would not use T2s unless you happen to be trapped by being on FileMaker Cloud for AWS, which only allows T2s and C4s, I think. Something So there's some C, I think there's a C and a couple of M's at the high end, but they're actually the old ones. I think it's C4s and M4s, whereas there's C5 and M5 are both out. And I'll scroll over to the left side, which is lovely color coded. Maybe you hate my color scheme, but these are about the order that we would do stuff in. You can ignore the 3 at the bottom. The client wanted to know, hey, if we do a Cadillac server, just write a fat check. Just to play around with the numbers, what would that look like? So you can ignore those. But for most customers, they're going to be in the first probably 4 of those. So you'll be with a T3 medium, large, X large, or 2X large. And then for certain customers that need really low latency on their server side, like guaranteed low latency, we'd put you on an M5 instead. But those are all fairly similar. It's a dual core, quad core. The T3 2X large is actually an 8 core and 32 gigs of RAM.
So this is 8 cores and 32 gigs of RAM. That's pretty. Yep. Is that 4? Is this our 4?
That's not 4. No, the orange one is 4.
This is our 4 right here.
Yep.
Oh, then you got this one right here. So
yeah.
what is this? So, is this 4 cores? Is that what this 4 cores? And
yeah, 4 cores, 16 gig of RAM.
16 gig. Okay. For everyone, just so you understand, for me personally, 16 gigs of RAM is what I consider the minimum loadout, but I have databases that are 4, 5, 8 gigs pretty easily. But if you're like really cost sensitive and you have 5 people and it's not giant, or you're Simon Day, then take a look at the T3 medium here and try to set something like that up. Or set up a Mac Mini in your office with a lot of backup drives on it. And then at least, listen, a Mac Mini in your office with backup drives on it is still infinitely better than trying to run it locally without server, okay? So let's just be clear about that, right?
And Moki asked a follow-up question about, if I was going to have a 5-person server or something like this, what's, is that like what it is? And it's like, okay, cool. So a medium on Amazon is a dual core and 4 gigs of RAM. Yes. For those of you who have read the technical specifications for FileMaker Server, you will note that Claris recommends an 8 gigabyte of RAM as the minimum. And that is true, actually. We can get away with a medium under basically a limited scenario. And the limited scenario is you don't have too much data and you don't have too many users. And you're not trying to do anything really crazy, catchy, cool, whatever. If you want to do any, if you have any, if you have one interesting requirement, you might be able to swing it on a medium. If you have 2, you're getting a large. Period. I will fight customers on that because if you have one interesting thing going on, if it's not too high load or something else, fine, you'll probably be able to get away with it. But as soon as you have 2, you're going to have performance problems, and you're not going to have a great experience on the platform. And so basically, for people that don't really need anything, they have a couple users in an office or something like that, a medium is perfect. As soon as you get up anywhere near 10 users, you have nightly processing that needs to happen, or hourly scheduled scripts, or like anything that's going to increase the load in a significant way, kind of on average or whatever. You're immediately going to want a large, and you'll have a much better experience with that. So.
Yeah. Yep. So cool. Well, Carol from Oakland had to bail. But people are processing and thinking about this. So it was a good day. Got a lot of good information out. And interesting chart. It's always good that you have charts like this. Pretty awesome. I love it. All right. You're trying to fix your chart now that we broke it or unbroke it?
Or no. I'm showing these two. So the difference, same data set size. We had a gigabyte database and 4 gigs of external container data. That right there is the difference. We'll say 76 versus 100. That is the price difference between a medium and a large. For using the same example data sets. The only thing that's different here is the T3 medium versus the T3 large for the horsepower, which is 4 gigs versus 8 gigs of memory.
Yep. And then Simon or Moki was asking me, have we experimented with the M1 Mac Mini? Actually, I have some M1s, but I have not experimented with 19.3 because I've got a full schedule right now, and there's other people running around very eager to test it. It makes me nervous because the processes they are doing, optimizing, if they get them wrong, are going to destroy the file, right? So I'd prefer, I don't really have any test things that I'm happy to throw away and destroy, and I don't have any spare hours in the day for that at the moment. All right, Mark Johnson says he has 19.2 server on a Mac Mini running Rosetta, but not live, only tested it. Yeah, so 19.3 is the version that will run on that. So
run natively.
Natively,
Yeah.
it's, you know.
I'm told by Claris 19.2 runs fine on the M1 under the emulation. You're just not getting any of the extra horsepower from that hardware doing that.
Correct.
Those things are solidly like 30 to 40% faster than an equivalent Intel if the code is compiled for the M1, and because it's not currently, basically you have, I mean, you know, it's not bad. Like, you're not going to see any huge complaints about it because it runs fast enough for small businesses like that. But as soon as you can get to 19.3 is not out yet, but as soon as it's out, highly recommend going that if you're using an M1 Mac Mini for your hosting purposes.
Cool. All right, well, that's it for today. I appreciate everyone for having an awesome day. Next week, real quick as a reminder, we're going to be hunting for gold coins with Christian Olsen. It's going to be very exciting. Gold coins hidden in the desert with FileMaker Server, FileMaker Pro 19.2.2, gold coins. Legit, no, I'm being serious. It's awesome new features in there that really Claris hasn't talked about, not really being talked about too much, but it is pretty awesome. We're looking forward to that. Then there'll be, then I'll be basically presenting Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Although Jacob's going to help on Friday next week. And then for those of you doing the neomorphism training with Nick Hunter, reminder that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific. 11 a.m. Pacific. It will be recorded. There'll be some edits on that. And then for those people who are paying for that training, remind you of that. Don't forget. I appreciate it. And that's it. So, Jacob, any last final words for the audience?
No. Do your backups. Check your backups. Make sure you have backups.
Make your backup and check your IT guys, because they may have just like, they may be like, yeah, we back up. We totally back up. We back up.
Yeah, go check their stuff.
We back up. Promise. Cross my heart. Hope to die. Peace out, bro. All right, I like that. That's a good one, Ellen. See ya. Pow.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.